It starts with a funny feeling in your belly. Butterflies are flapping their wings and making you feel unsettled. Then you may begin to pace from one room to another, or jump from one activity to another and to another without completing anything. You act almost like you hope to figure out an answer to your dilemma by staying in motion. Finally, that feeling reaches your mind, and you can add words to your emotions. You must act, because to not act is to ignore God and what God is asking you to do. Maybe the words from Martin Niemöller come to mind and rattle around in your brain. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. So finally, you stand up for what is right. You speak out. You follow your call. You act on that feeling in your gut that you can't ignore. I imagine this is how Peter must have been feeling when he was in Joppa. You see, Peter had his group of people. He had his friends and his fellow disciples. They were working together to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to their fellow Jews. Peter and his friends were preaching and teaching and healing and sharing the good news from Samaria to the ends of the earth. And this is Peter's group. And I'm not going to draw people, you get X's today. That's Peter's group, the disciples, the Jews who are following the Jesus way. And then poor Peter, he saw a vision and he heard a voice while he was praying. And this voice showed him animals of all kinds and told him, "Kill and eat." And Peter was horrified. He couldn't eat those animals. They were unclean. To eat those animals would make him unclean. That would separate him from God. It would alienate him from his people, from his group. But Peter was shown this scene 3 times, and the message was clear. What God has made clean, you must not call profane. And then 3 men showed up at the door, 3 Gentiles, where Peter was staying, and asked him to go with them. And Peter went because the Spirit had told him not to make a distinction between them and us. There's the Gentiles. They have their own group. Don't make a distinction between them and us, we say. But the lines are drawn. There are the Jews following the Torah and living their lives in such a way that they can stay ritually clean. They don't want anything to disrupt their connection to God. And then there's the Gentiles, a generic term for anyone who was not Jewish. And the lines between us and them are drawn. Those circles keep people in their categories, and they give people a way to identify themselves. I am this, not that. But Peter's vision told him those lines don't exist. His dream told him not to make a distinction and not to call unclean what God has made clean. So Peter went with the men to Caesarea, to the house and the family of Cornelius, a Roman centurion and a God-fearer. That means that Cornelius, and because of the way the society was structured, everyone who lived or worked in his household made sacrifices and offerings to God. They followed the Jewish rules and the Jewish way of life. But they were not Jews. They were not circumcised. Their circle was there, not there. But while he was there, Peter preached the gospel of Jesus Christ to them, and the very same Spirit that had come upon the disciples at Pentecost, the very same Spirit that came down from heaven in the form of a dove at Jesus' baptism, that same Spirit came upon them. Gentiles. What God has made clean, let no one call profane. We like to draw lines. We put circles around us and them. We name our groups, and we form our identities based on our circles. And then we let those lines calcify into borders of anger and hate and fear. The Jews and the Gentiles weren't the only ones with circles. But God drew a bigger circle. And it encompasses the Jews and the Gentiles and all the other circles that we can dream up. God's circle includes all of us. God's message is that we should not form our identities based on those little circles. We should form our identity based on the one circle that matters. That's the circle God has drawn. What God has called good, let no one call profane. When 3 Gentile men came in search of Jewish Peter, he went with them because he followed God's directive not to make a distinction between them and us. And this is of ultimate reality to us. If you are a woman home alone, and 3 big black men come to your door, would you go with them? If you are a man, and 3 young women dressed seductively come to your door, would you go with them? If 3 Muslims wearing headscarves came to your door, would you go with them? If 3 people covered in tattoos and smelling of cigarette smoke came to your door, would you go with them? We don't name our circles Jews and Gentiles. We name them Black, Hispanic, sex workers, terrorists, convicts. Make no mistake that we draw circles and we build border fences around them. Make no mistake that God has drawn a bigger circle. And that God is telling us quite clearly those lines do not exist. Our identity is not formed by standing in our circle and saying, I am not black, I am not Muslim, I am not Hispanic, I am not. Our identity is formed by standing in God's circle, where everyone is included. God has drawn the lines that matter. And God's circle is for everyone, not just for the people that we choose. Peter's vision is for us. And I am hard-pressed to find any lesson that we need to learn any more than this one. What God has called clean, what God has included, what God has created, let no one call profane. Please pray with me. God, we draw so many circles, and we look for our own identity based on people who are like us, who look or sound like us, who live like us. Help us to remember, help us to learn that the only circle that matters is the one that you have drawn, that encompasses all of your creation. I pray this with faith in Jesus Christ, that all will be reconciled. Amen.